Minister of Procurement for the Trudeau Liberal government has been touting this statistic that they have 390 million vaccine contracts, which means that they have more vaccine contracts than any other country in the world. But that means absolutely nothing.
Hello. Welcome back to This Week in Canada. We're doing a sort of extra session. This is the stuff we can't include in the regular podcast because it perhaps is a bit too weird or a bit too gory, who knows? But Roberto obviously didn't want to be here. So instead we got Matthew Grainger. Matthew, say hello.
Oh, that's so nice of you to make me feel like the second choice all the time. You know what? I'm fine with that. It's okay. How are you doing, Nico? I'm happy to be on here. I know you seem a bit pessimistic about it.
Yeah, well, it's Valentine's Day, which is why perhaps I'm in a terrible mood. Producer James actually made a wonderful Valentine's card. Here, I'll put it on the screen here, which I sent to someone. They haven't responded yet, but my Valentine's Day is still doing better, I reckon, than Justin Trudeau. Matt, isn't that right?
It is. If you recall, there was an episode of TWIC dedicated to it. Justin Trudeau, with his wife, made an announcement on Canada Day of last year, and just to cap it all off, after bringing their 0 viewers to a fever pitch on CPAC, they decided to just end it with a really, really gross kiss.
Well, yeah.
and
I mean, this is so long ago now. It's quite nice actually to bring it back. But Sophie Gregoire Trudeau from Montreal clearly didn't want to kiss the guy. I wouldn't want to kiss Justin Trudeau. The New York Times especially.
Speak for yourself, Nico. Speak for yourself.
I mean, so many people find the guy attractive. I don't quite see it, but perhaps I'm just speaking with envy here. But I don't know. But I think, and I don't lend myself to conspiracy theories. I believe anything that Rosemary Barton tells me. But this applies to everything, apart from the fact that Justin Trudeau and Sophie Gregoire are happily married. They may be married, but it certainly isn't happy.
And Nico, to that point, Justin Trudeau for Valentine's Day brought this all back up again through a pretty horrible tweet. I think we can put it up like right here or just generally here. Pretty awkward. Almost like he just sort of picked up one of those grocery store Valentine's Day cards and thought he'd just steal the caption. Not a lot of genuine compliments in that, and again, not much proof that they're happily married. But hey, what do I know? I've never been in a happy relationship in my life. How about you, Nico?
Well, I've been in some relationships. I'm not sure I could add the caveat happy, but no, there's certainly been some. Matthew, has there been any love in your life this year, would you say?
No. Just love of country, love of politics, and love of This Week in Canada.
Yeah.
And if you share that love, this isn't a shameless plug. If you share that love, we have some T-shirts that could help you definitely, do some PR for us.
Yeah.
and just represent your pride that you're part of this beautiful community.
I mean, guys, you know what I tell my dad? I say, who needs a girlfriend when you have a podcast? It's the same sort of demand, you know. I've got producer James, he sort of fits the emotional bit for me. It's sexless, but, I think all relationships are, eventually. So, it fits the sort of void in my heart. Isn't that right, Grainger?
Yeah, let's go to a transition real quick.
Let's have a transition.
Hey, if that last segment wasn't depressing enough, we're now going to turn to vaccine procurement, which is never a cheery topic in Canada, apparently. And I believe as of yesterday, Nico, you know more about this than I do because you sent me the link to the information. How far behind is Canada compared to other countries now?
Well, it's pretty startling. We're 38th in the world in terms of, I think, vaccines distributed per 100 people, which is, pretty surprising when you consider that Canada, I think, is the 10th largest economy in the world. We're a very wealthy country. We pride ourselves in being progressive and forward-looking. And yet it seems to me that the Prime Minister was more than happy, quite liberal, if you will, about putting us into lockdown. Doesn't care about that. He was more than happy to do that. Didn't think about the consequences, to people's mental health or, actual health, or indeed to their liberty or to their constitution. Threw us into lockdown without any actual plan of getting us out of it. And, draw whatever conclusion you may about what that signifies about this government and their values. But at the end of the day, it quite simply means we're going to be months behind other countries when it comes to getting our economy restarted. And, I look at, I'm obviously quite familiar with the UK. Boris Johnson got a lot of stick, got into a lot of trouble because he didn't want to put the country into a lockdown. I think you could probably say the same thing about Trump. You could say the same thing about other Western leaders. They didn't actually want to do this to their populace. And because of that, I think that may have contributed, sorry, I can't speak right now, to actually having an effective plan about getting out of it. I mean, Matt, what do you think?
Well, I mean, my main problem is that, it really appears right now like they didn't have a plan, but they continue to pretend that they did all along, and they refuse to admit that it's not going according to plan. I mean, right now, I think Anita Anand, is that how you pronounce the procurement minister's name?
Yes.
Well, yes, the Minister of Procurement for the Trudeau Liberal government has been touting this statistic that they have 390 million vaccine contracts, which means that they have more vaccine contracts than any other country in the world. But that means absolutely nothing. It means that you have promises to get vaccines that haven't been approved, haven't been made, and are nowhere near completion or being delivered to Canada. So I'm pretty upset that they continue using lines like that, and especially coming from Anita Anand, who I believe was a professor at the University of Toronto. I attend University of Toronto, so of course I'm going to pretend it's a great institution. But she knows what she's doing, and these sorts of diversions shouldn't be accepted, especially from someone who is clearly intelligent and is not that great of procurement. Remember, this is the same procurement minister who got those wonderful used F-18s from Australia, and we only have 3 out of 18 delivered in 3 years. So pretty brutal.
Yeah,
but,
and Matt, you talked about the contracts. We do have just an unspecified number of contracts. And the trouble is it's quite important, obviously, to look into this. The Conservative Party wanted these contracts released to the public so we can understand just why exactly Canada is so far behind in all of this. And yet, when they proposed that motion, I think, to the Health Committee, it was filibustered. 5 hours of Liberal MPs speaking to stop what I think is pretty crucial information which, by the way, places like the EU have released. I think Australia released versions of their contracts to the public, and yet Canada is unwilling to do it. And it's another failing of transparency. It shows that the Canadian government, Justin Trudeau and his Liberal Party, don't actually care that much about transparency. They're trying to hide what I think has been a spectacular disaster and error. And then on top of that, they are unwilling to accept that. Again, in the EU, they've done terribly, better than Canada, by the way, but still comparatively, they've done pretty badly. And you have the European Commissioner coming out and saying, yeah, it was a mistake. And people can sort of sympathise with that. And then in Canada, you get people like Katie Telford, who is sort of the epitome. She's Justin Trudeau's chief of staff. And she's the epitome of sort of this Ottawa elite who are bilingual, who sort of are the daughters of politicians and bureaucrats, who are married to bureaucrats and politicians, who are in this bubble. And they come out on Twitter and say things like, oh yeah, well, Anita Anand and Justin Trudeau have been really aggressive. They've been meticulous with vaccine procurement. They haven't. Stop lying. Be honest. It's really tarring. And it's pretty, honestly, just depressing.
Well, I mean, and at the crux of all of this is they filibustered a bill, correct? So filibustering a bill, if you're so insistent on the fact that you're transparent and you have nothing to hide, filibustering a bill for more transparency absolutely flies in the face of that. So I really don't see how they can
and let's not forget,
go about two completely different tactics and speech.
And let's not, in 2015, Trudeau campaigned on the idea. Like, there's this famous tweet, which I think James will pull up on the screen. As you can see, he campaigned on the fact that his government was going to be transparent. This was before he became Prime Minister. Every single year, something happens which he attempts to hide. He's, we obviously all remember him proroguing Parliament in order to get out of the WE scandal, something which he criticised the Harper government for. I mean, these people don't care. It's power for the sake of power. It reminds me of a George Grant quote, and for anyone who's interested in Canadian politics, everyone should read George Grant's Lament of the Nation. But it reminds me just saying, the Conservative Party are never in power because they're principled and also terrible at getting there. The Liberal Party are always in power because they don't actually care what happens to Canada so long that they're in power. And I think this is just yet another example of that. Welcome back. What a transition. We're doing a shorter episode because it is obviously the sort of This Week in Canada Extra edition. Let us know what you think. Obviously, it's slightly lighter in sort of content, or at least we tried to make it slightly lighter in content. But we're going to try a few other things. We might have Roberto on the podcast so we can get him out of bed. And we might do it longer. We might do full-scale interviews. We might even move it away from Canada and bring in some interesting people, just journalists from around the world, and have interesting conversations with them. We're also thinking of having it, we don't vape, or try not to vape, for instance, on the main podcast. So in terms of, like swearing and stuff like that, we may also be a bit more liberal. So it's more flexible, perhaps. But yeah, I mean, I really hope you enjoyed it. Do remember to subscribe, leave a comment, buy our shirts. They're lovely shirts, as Matthew said. It means a lot to us that you guys support the channel and you love our content so much.
Well, yeah, exactly. And if you have some ideas for what we should be doing, just let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your ideas because you're really what drives this whole channel. So we really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on Friday. Bye-bye.